Let's see some attack scenarios. Session hijacking. That means we can steal cookies. As you know, every time you connect to a website and you authenticate into it, you get a session cookie 90% of the time. You get a session cookie, which is authenticated, and if by any chance someone grab that session cookie, they can put it in the browser, in their own browser, and impersonate your accessing whatever application you were logged in, banking account, whatever it is. So the attacker can do something like this. They can prepare in their website. They need to find a way to lure you to connect to their website. When you go to that website, probably can be a blog teaching you how to cook, a blog teaching you how to buy soccer, tennis. As long as you go to that website, he's going to load the iframe. This iframe is invisible. You can see the height and width is 0, 0. That means it's not going to be shown into the web page, but behind the scenes, the iframe is going to connect to the hacker site, and the document.cookie is going to be sent as part of the content. That means that if you are in a banking session and you try to visit in the same browser that specific website, it is going to steal your cookie and it's going to send it to the attacker. At that point, the attacker can use your cookie and impersonate your access. This is another example that you can also put it in an image. So the attacker is saying, okay, here is my image, and the image is going to connect back to the attacker's website. Again, connecting to HackYou and concatenating the document.cookie. Keep in mind that this specific injection is in your browser, in the victim. We are accessing that specific page, and it is redirecting us. Our browser is executing those attacks. And therefore, our browser is the one who has the cookies, and those are being stolen. I'm going to talk about also the same origin policy in a second, because that's another very important topic that we need to discuss. Okay, here is another attack, browser redirection. As I said, the attacker can put an iframe, and instead of stealing your cookies, he's going to say, connect to my website. Your browser is going to connect to the hacker website without even knowing it. And if the hacker has an exploit that can compromise your browser, they will get access to your PC, or they can infect it, which is pretty common, by the way. Other kind of attacks, browser exploitation. There is something called the universal cross-site scripting. Nowadays, there has been a lot of news about this kind of attack using cross-site scripting or cross-site request 480, which is another course, where universal cross-site scripting means that unlike the common cross-site scripting attacks, UXSS, which is the name, is an attack that exploits client-side vulnerabilities in the browser. With cross-site scripting, as you remember, we are just executing JavaScript code, right? But in this kind of attacks, the attackers are exploiting vulnerabilities in the browser or in the plugins installed on that specific browser. Once they exploit this vulnerability, obviously there is a connection with cross-site. That's the reason it's called universal cross-site, because that vulnerability in the browser, they will use cross-site scripting attacks to trigger those specific vulnerabilities. Can be JavaScript code that can crash the browser or gain code execution. That's very common, and we have a lab about universal cross-site scripting with a recent vulnerability that attackers can be able to bypass security controls. Actually, that vulnerability that I was just describing is able to bypass what it is called same origin policy. When we talk about browsers and websites, there is a concept known as same origin policy. That means, let me explain you an scenario. Let's suppose that you have your session in a bank, online banking, right? Here is your web page. And let's suppose that you open a second window and then you navigate to a blog. But that blog, let's say that it is malicious and there is an attacker there trying to exploit your PC. The attacker is able, if the attacker is able to exploit your PC, still the same origin policy protects you because the attacker cannot go from that website and read everything in your banking page. In other words, the attacker, even though if it compromised via JavaScript or cross-site script in your browser, he cannot go and say, okay, let me connect to the banking page and grab cookies and grab everything. Reading remotely is not possible. That's what same origin comes into place. In other words, what it says is only from the same origin can be able to read information from. If you are in a different origin, which means origin means same protocol, same port, and same host. If you are in a different host, different domain protocol, or different host, then you are not in the same origin, and then you are not allowed to read from that other website. Let's see some examples here taken from Wikipedia. Let's say that we have this specific URL. If we try to validate the same origin against this URL, we can see that the first one is success because it is the same protocol, HTTP, it is the same host, www.example.com, and it is the same port, 80. The second one is exactly the same. We can see that the second one even have a different URI. It is other instead of page, but it is the same protocol, same host, and same port. These 3 points are the ones that decide if it is the same origin. The third one is the same, but the fourth one is a failure. And the reason it is a failure is because you can see that the port is 81. Since it is the port 81, and the original that we are comparing is port 80, then it's not the same origin. Same for the next one is a different host. You can see that in that one is en.example.com, and our main URL is www.example.com. It's the same domain, but different subdomain, and just because of that, it's not the same host, and it's not the same origin. And well, there are other examples. Internet Explorer, they don't rely on the port, they rely on zones. It's a kind of different approach, but similar idea. As you can see here, same origin plays a key role in this whole web-based environment. So that, as I told you, attackers cannot just grab your browser, execute JavaScript code, and start reading the whole content of your sessions in your machine. They cannot do that because of the same origin policy. Unfortunately, the attackers find ways to bypass this control, as we are going to see in one of our labs, how they can bypass same origin policy via a universal cross-site scripting attack.